Well, LegalVision is an online legal service helping Australian businesses keep their cost of compliance and legal advice low. Lachlan McKnight is the CEO and he joins me tonight to talk about the new way that Australian small businesses are seeking to get legal advice. We're also going to look at some of the federal government's small business initiatives that have been rolled out this week. So welcome to the program, Lachlan.
Thanks for having me, Heidi.
Pleasure. So, LegalVision, how and why did it get started?
Look, we're a law firm. We started 2.5 years ago. We were looking to things a bit differently. So we've all worked in either top-tier corporate law firms or startups, and we thought the approach that law firms generally take to how they service customers could be transformed by sort of taking a tech startup approach to the way that they do it. So what we do is we offer three main things that differentiate us from a traditional firm. Firstly, we're online and tech-driven, so everything we do is driven by technology. The second thing we do is everything is fixed fee-based. So businesses hate the bill shock they get when they get the law firm's bill at the end of the month. We don't do that. We price up front. We price on a fixed fee. And thirdly, we don't compromise on quality. So all of our lawyers either come from ex-top-tier law firms or from mid-tier firms, so very high-quality mid-tier firms.
So what do you do then when a client comes to you and you've given them a fixed cost and all of a sudden the work spirals out of control and it's a bigger issue? Well, surely they have to revise the cost.
Sure. So look, the first thing is clearly scoping the work before we do it, so really getting a very good understanding of what needs to be done. And the second thing is, a lot of people don't realise this, is with fixed fees, at the end of the day you win some, you lose some. You know, you're not always going to get a great margin on any given job, so you have to accept that as well.
So I certainly get the fact that as an online legal service provider you don't have the cost of bricks and mortar, but how does the technology translate into you delivering your service differently?
Sure. So we have a lot of lawyers, for instance, who work from home, who work from rural and regional areas, lawyers who've sort of had enough of the corporate law firm job, want to have a different lifestyle. Now, because they're working remotely, we don't have all those overhead costs of the fancy office, and that allows us to do things more cost effectively. And secondly, we use technology. So we build our own tech, which allows us to automate documents, for instance, and that speeds up the document drafting process, and that again reduces costs as well. Does
the customer get to experience any of this smooth transition of your document process, or all back-end stuff?
Look, we try and, with our customers, we try and make the experience as personal as possible. So what we want to do is make the customers have that relationship with the lawyer, whether that's on Skype or on the phone. And our document drafting, we keep away from the customers. They don't want to be bothered with that. They're busy running their businesses, and we help them get on and do that.
So cloud-based technology, that's all the buzzword. Does this mean that consumers can, or clients can basically log into a portal online and share some documents with you that way?
Sure. So that's actually the next iteration of our business. So we've built all of our tech mainly for internal purposes at the moment, but we're launching in a couple of weeks a portal which will allow customers to log in directly, to upload documents, to download documents, and so on and so forth. We're in beta testing with that. It's proving very popular, so it's something that we're going to be rolling out to our broader customer base.
So technology, it's the place that people come. I mean, we're moving into a new phase. You're in business. You basically offer business law advice. Do you offer much advice in the way of how businesses can harness technology and all the trappings that go with it?
Look, we do for larger businesses. So we get a lot of large franchisors, for instance, who have a large volume of documentation they need assistance with, and it can be a challenge if you've got 40, 100, 200 franchisees that you need to have documented in terms of franchise documents, disclosure documents, commercial leases. So what we do for those larger clients is build them a custom portal which allows them to basically get access to their documents in a more cost-effective and quicker way, essentially.
Small business, often it's off the sniff of an oily rag as you try to get traction with things. Where do a lot of small businesses go wrong? And really, if they took just a few basic steps to get some basic legal advice, they could prevent some, issues spiralling out of control. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah, sure. So, look, a big one is starting a business and launching as a sole trader rather than a company. It's not that expensive to set up as a company. It can be done very cost effectively, and it does reduce your liability. And down the track, if you do grow, you're going to need to move your structure into a company structure anyway. Often it's better just to set that up from the word go.
And I should say that the federal government's initiatives on that is actually making it more possible to make those changes to a different structure at this time and being able to write off the cost of the professional advice? That's
right. So before July 1st, it was a 5-year write-off process, depreciation. Now it's 1 year. So you can write that off. The cost of setting up, the legal cost of setting up and so on and so forth, you can write them off.
And changing structures.
That's right. So in the changing structure space, there's some CGT implications from changing that relate to changing from a sole trader to a company structure, and the recent budget is reducing the costs from that
because as you indicated, I'm sure a lot of people do start off as a sole trader, and then only later when the business has got traction that they sort of come and they've got a bit more cash to throw around to get that legal advice, and that's when you say actually you should be in a different structure.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's correct.
And what about other trappings that you see? Like, sure. I imagine trademarking something that a lot of small businesses forego? Yeah,
definitely. Trademarking is a big one. Look, at the end of the day, it's actually not that expensive, again, to register a trademark. And we do see a lot of issues with businesses. Either it's not so much someone using their trademark down the track. It's generally they've started a business, launched a business, and the name that they've chosen is not something they can trademark. So that's an issue, Make sure that the business name you've chosen, the brand you've chosen, can actually be trademarked before you get into the whole marketing of it, because there's a cost to all of that.
Certainly. And we've also seen this week the rollout of the employee share scheme change from the federal government. What does that basically mean for small businesses and startups these days? Sure.
So, look, I mean, there's lots of rules around it, but at its core, before these changes, if a startup wanted to give their employee stock options or shares, those stock options or shares would be taxed at the top marginal rate of the employee in the year in which they were given, which was essentially, it meant there was no point in giving out the stock options, because stock options or shares in a startup could be worth a lot or could be worth nothing. They're certainly not worth very much at the time that they're granted, and it makes no sense to pay income tax on that grant. The change basically relates to if you structure it in the correct way, a way in which the ATO has kind of set out this is how you can do it, you can be taxed on income, on capital gains, and you can be taxed not at the time of issuance, but the time of exercise of the option. That means is you only pay tax if you make money, essentially.
Well, that sounds fair.
It is fair, yeah.
And I guess this is the uprising of the startups and the innovation we need to support here in Australia to, the small businesses retain top talent and do it in creative ways when they don't have the capital to pay high salaries.
Sure. I mean, it's a small start, we can say. There's a lot that could be done, but it's a good start, and hopefully there'll be more to come from the government on that.
Any tips for the government on what they should be thinking about doing next in this space?
Look, as an example, I think in Singapore, a startup company doesn't pay tax for the first 3 years, whether they're profitable or not. So that's an example of real government intervention in the space. But at the end of the day, I think the government staying out of the startup and small business space is actually more the issue.
Yeah.
So the only reason that we were in this situation was the government in 2009 changed the rules to effectively mean that you were taxed on income. So the only reason the change made back to the current structure is, at the end of the day, I think, look...
Yeah, less is more sometimes.
That's right, yeah.
Well, look, I wish you all the very best with the business and helping, small businesses get the right legal advice at, cost-effective rates. So thanks for joining me.